with 3 people and large machinery and tractors compared to if you were doing all that hand labor, you'd have 100 people out there in the vineyard. So
Hmm.
our profit margins are larger, our break-even costs are quite a bit lower. And we grow those grapes, sell them to wineries, and they pick them up in trucks and take them down to wine country in Texas.
Hello, Empower Nation. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast. I'm your host, Angela Duncan. Today's episode, I get to interview Keeley Hubbard. If you've been listening to me for a while, you know I love talking about real estate investing and also alternative investments. And I'm super excited that Keeley is going to be talking to us today from Texas Legacy Vines, which you can tell by the title means we're going to be talking about alternative investments, specifically in the wine industry. She's going to talk about commercial real estate, what they're doing as far as what she's seeing now, some trends and her future predictions, especially around the agriculture world. And then we're going to talk about wines and how that business came about and what is she seeing in that industry as far as alternative investments. We're going to talk about equity raising, which is so important for any business, and so much more. Hi, Keeley. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, Angela. I appreciate it.
Yes, me too. It's going to be a fun topic for me to learn more about you and what you do, but I would love for you to kind of bring us back a little bit earlier. How did you get started and kind of the journey where you're at now?
Yeah, it's it's a wild ride in entrepreneurship, but I am a serial sales gal. I've been in sales for 18 years, so built a pretty big career in corporate. And as some people say, I got to the top of the mountain and I didn't like the view. And I always thought, man, I'll be happy. Like I'll feel like I made it if I can be VP of sales by the time I'm 30 of a pretty good sized company. And got there and I was like, man, this is just. I was exhausted. I felt emotionally bankrupt. And so I did what people thought was crazy and I quit at the peak of my career and went out to start my own, coaching and consulting company. And I've always been an investor and, love investing. I've raised private capital for quite a few different asset classes. And so around that time, my dad was like, do you want to get into real estate? And so now I do 2 different businesses. One of them is sales coaching. A lot of that is teaching capital raising from private investors for the private investor market. And then I actively invest myself, and we're into agriculture now. So we operate a company called Texas Legacy Vines that is a ground up vineyard development in Texas. And investors join that partnership that want to own a vineyard or say that they own a vineyard, but don't want to deal with the day-to-day, farming of the vineyard and all the operational stuff. But we have a ton of fun, Texas gal. And yeah, that's the journey to where I am today.
Yeah, 2 very different classes. So let's start on the real estate side. How did
Yes.
you guys kind of get started in that, decide what asset class you're going to get into? And then I would love to hear more about the private equity as well.
Yeah, we for the longest time we were always all about the financial markets. My dad's a professional trader in Forex and futures. He'd actively trade the market, he'd manage money, and interest rates started shifting. Back in 2014, couldn't make the same returns that he was making for his investors. Like, we need to get into hard assets. And so we went down the path of real estate and didn't want to manage, single family residences. It's very, challenging to scale a portfolio and to buy large enough portfolios or properties where you can bring in investor capital. And so we started looking at large apartment complexes, which in the industry is known as multifamily. Bought a couple of those properties, managed those for a couple of years, and then found our way into agriculture, which was a very similar structure of just bringing investors in that want diversification in their portfolio, want access to, higher returns than what they might be getting in the stock market or otherwise, and tax advantages. And my dad always wanted to put a vineyard on the family ranch. And so we found a way to, it's not on the family ranch, it's about 3 hours north of that, but found a way to build a legacy in Texas and do it through ag. So there's so many cool investments out there, multifamily, self-storage, industrial warehousing, but I just love the alternative investment space.
Yeah, same here. I think, we touched a little bit on the private equity. Go into a little bit deeper. What does that mean? And then what do you find people say is the most difficult part of raising equity?
Yeah, so private equity in the alternative investment space, Tony Robbins, I love everything Tony Robbins does. huge fan of his, but he wrote his recent book, The Holy Grail of Investing. He talks
Mhm.
about how the wealthiest in America or in the world invest in the alternative asset market. So it's moving money outside of mutual funds and stock market and your traditional investments like the 401k and getting access to the private investment space. And these are just, everyday people that are operators that go out and find large projects and need investor capital to make it happen. So those investors are typically accredited investors that have a certain level of income or net worth that can get access to these types of deals. And you'll have investors that'll put $100,000 in, a few $100,000 in, and they'll spread that out where they own, a vineyard in Texas, they own an apartment complex in Georgia, they're in oil and gas deal, they've got some self-storage properties in Tennessee, but they're able to passively invest and not have to like be bothered with all the headaches and the operational stuff, which is what the general partnership team or the operators of the project handle. So it's a win-win, right? The general partner gets the project funded, they participate in, and share in equity and cash flow, and the passive investor gets a chance to diversify their portfolio but not deal with all the nuances and the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah. It sounds like you were maybe a little bit younger when you were starting on the real estate, like equity raising side. How did you get past some of those maybe early objections, like you've never done this before, or you're too young for this? I would like to hear where your thought process was.
Yeah, I started that in 2014. And it's interesting because most of the people that I was talking to were more than double my age at the time.
Mhm.
But I brought a lot of the skill sets that I developed in sales into the capital raising role. And early in my sales career, I had a lot of head trash about, being a woman in the finance space. Because even in a
Mhm.
sales role where I built my sales career, it was in the financial education industry. So not on the investment
Mm.
side, but I started simultaneously raising money. It's, same conversation. It was just money was transacting for education versus money transacting for investments. And I had to get past my own head trash around, are people going to take me seriously? And it took a coach that was like, who told you that? Like, why do you
Mhm.
believe that, to be true? Who told you that nobody's going to listen to you because you're a woman or you're young? He's like, get rid of that. Walk in there like you own the place and start carrying yourself like you know what you're talking about. And it's crazy because that was the issue, was me
Mhm.
thinking that they had a problem with it and they didn't. It was my own crap in my head that I had to work through.
Yeah.
So
I love that term that you're using, head trash, too. I haven't heard that one before, but that's definitely a good, explanation of what it felt like.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but once I got past that and realized that okay, I have this kind of like secret investment that could really help somebody, like it'd be selfish of me to not share it and not speak with conviction regardless of our age difference. Like I can really help
Mhm.
you. Take a look at it.
Yeah.
So it
Now,
was the
being that
mindset.
you're in the market now, real estate market, it's been kind of a tough year. I've had some friends, give their apartment complexes back to the banks, the shift in interest rates, and they weren't prepared.
Yes.
What do you see happening now? And perhaps, obviously, we're gonna get through this election, but what do you see in the future happening either way?
I think the market's starting to open up. I mean, obviously we've had, one rate cut. We're all crossing our fingers for another one here by December, but we're seeing things shift. One of my best friends and business partners is a commercial mortgage broker, and so she's seeing a lot of operators starting to send her deals that are looking to start moving money again. So I think things are going to open up. I don't think we'll ever go back to where we were in 2020 and 2021 with interest rates. So I think investors and operators need to adjust their mindset around just realistic returns. And I think a lot of operators are changing their asset management strategies when things, that we could not see coming have happened in the last couple of years. But I still think commercial real estate is an incredible place to put your money.
Yeah, and I do see, my daughter's 21 and like that generation not so much wanting to own a home. They want the freedom of being able to rent. So the
Yeah,
multifamily, the apartment space, I agree, is going to be pretty strong. And I also agree that the interest rate's probably not going to see that unless, I mean, COVID was a big thing. That was a big impact for the rates and kind of what happened with the environment. So that means something big and negative needs to happen for the rates to drop down. I'd rather not happen.
exactly. I totally agree with you on that.
All right, so let's switch a little bit to the agriculture side. Talk about, how that kind of came about, what you guys do with the agriculture. Do you go through the whole one, like go through the whole thing with that?
Yeah, so we basically we buy raw land and we install large scale mechanized vineyards. So Texas has a really big wine industry, like $20 billion industry. The problem is we're 20 years behind California when it comes to how we operate our vineyards. So everybody here is doing things by hand. And a large vineyard in Texas is like 40 to 60 acres. And the vineyard sites that we're building are 350 acres. And the reason that we're building them so large is because we get economies of scale, much like you do in multifamily investing. You get economies of scale when you have more apartment units. Same thing when it comes to vineyards. And so our partners, we wouldn't venture into agriculture without an expert in the actual farming side. But our partners, so it's my family and another family, the Morelands, they've done this for 9 years. They basically took California technology, proved out the business plan on their own 350-acre vineyard and said, hey, we want to scale. We think we'd make a great partnership. And so we started installing large-scale vineyards back in 2019, 2020, and 350 acres at a time, but we're just filling the supply gap in Texas. So the challenge for a lot of wineries here is that Texas farmers can't keep up with the wine demand. So there's not enough grapes, which means they're trucking grapes in from California. And then Texas wineries can't legally label it Texas wine because the juice isn't Texas. So we're coming in and filling that supply gap, building large scale vineyards that we can operate very efficiently, with 3 people and large machinery and tractors compared to if you were doing all that hand labor, you'd have 100 people out there in the vineyard. So our profit margins are larger. Our break-even costs are quite a bit lower. And we grow those grapes, sell them to wineries, and they pick them up in trucks and take them down to wine country in Texas and make wine. And we're involved on the, wholesale side early in the supply chain.
Gotcha. Now, see, I'm not a big wine drinker. I'm a whiskey drinker. So I don't really think about Texas as being a major player in the wine industry. So it's very interesting to know because when I think of Texas and the climate, I'm from California. So I don't really think that they're the same, but I guess there must be portions of Texas in the way that you guys can raise the grapes to be able to be competitive in the market.
Oh yeah, it's very similar to Central California.
Hmm.
So where we're growing grapes is in the northwest region of Texas. It's called the High Plains. So it is very similar to Paso Robles. It's like dry, hot days, cooler nights. We can do really well with reds. You're never going to see a Pinot Noir here, though. You're never going to see a Chardonnay. It's too hot. But a lot of those varietals that you see in, Spain and France, you're going to see grown in Texas. Tempranillo, Cabernet Sauvignon, Sauvignon Blanc. There's a lot of great white varietals that we can grow here. Yeah, we have a great climate for it. Very little humidity. So, and reds sell for more money in Texas as well, which is why we plant a lot of reds. They sell for more than whites. But, I always say there's some really bad Texas wine, and then there's some really good Texas wines. You just have to know which winemakers to try. There's a couple wines that have won international awards in the San Francisco International Wine Competition recently. So we've got some up and coming winemakers here in Texas. But I'm happy to give you some inside tips on which ones to try. People are like, I've tried Texas wine, it was horrible. I'm like, you got bad wine. Like there's some really good wine here. So you just got to know where to look.
I say the same thing about bourbon and whiskey. When
Yes.
people say they don't like it, I'm like, you just haven't tried the right one.
Exactly.
Yeah, but definitely going to have a road trip because as I've explored a little bit about wine, more of a red, obviously being the whiskey bourbon palate, would love to be able to learn more about that. But being a woman in this industry as well, obviously on the financial and real estate side, it's a male dominated industry. How do you feel about what the industry looks like for you being a woman and a leader in the industry?
I always look at it like it's an advantage. I mean, you're definitely a woman in a man's world, but I would rather be a woman in a man's world than, a woman in a sea of women. I love women, but you stand out when you're a female in a man's world. And I think for both sales, raising capital, like even when I was selling financial education, it was conversations about money. And I found that we really have an edge as women in talking about money because women prefer to talk to women about money because they don't feel intimidated to have that conversation. And men will open up to you like they won't open up to another man about money and finances and what's broken in their investing strategy and what's not working. There's no ego here. So you find people just pouring their heart out of what the real problems are because I'm a woman. So I always feel like that's a huge edge in this industry. And yeah, you meet some people that are, I call them stinkers. You meet some stinkers, right? Then you experience like, what are you doing in this world? I'm like, making laps around you. That's my attitude about it. So I just have fun with it. But I really believe it's an advantage in this space.
Yeah. And I think either industry, it comes down to the numbers, right? Does the numbers make sense in the investment?
Yes, absolutely.
So where do you see Texas market going forward? Because I do believe they also have whiskey distilleries in Texas as well. Where do you see like the future alcohol? Are we going to drink less? Is the world, where are you expanding to? Some future trends that you think is going to happen.
Yeah, what's interesting is wine demand around the world is kind of stagnant, but it's growing in Texas, and it's stayed, the growth trajectory has remained, um, it's stabilized in Texas. Like we continue to boom with new wine licenses being filed, California winery operations moving to Texas, Oregon
Mm.
operations moving to Texas because we have, less restrictions here, especially around the COVID time. Our wineries are not shutting down. Just business law more favorable here in Texas. So we're seeing an expansion here, and I do think that there's some large California wine operations that will start to get a foothold here in Texas. I imagine we'll probably get an offer for our vines when those vines are more mature from those bigger operations. But it just continues growing here, and I think that's the good thing about being in the spirits or the wine industry is that people drink when times are great and they drink when times are bad. So we don't see a decline in wine sales, even if you're in a recession. And we're also tapping into that market that's table wine. It's not the ultra premium market. 90% of your wines are sold in that kind of table wine, less than $25 a bottle type of a range. And that's the market that we're focused on.
Yeah, and it's great that you're the supplier because now, if one label isn't buying from you, then you have many options to be able to sell to different labels versus being the whole encompass where you're doing the growing and the labeling, because then people's perception and taste could change, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We already have, Oregon and California operations looking for grapes. So
Hmm.
Texas is the fourth largest wine grape growing state in the US, and it continues growing. A couple years ago it was number 5. So
Interesting.
we're moving up there.
Yeah. So is there anything that your family is going to be adding to your investment vehicles in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny because my dad's 68. He'll be 69 in December. And these vineyards will run for 45 years. And he's like, I don't care what y'all do in 20 years. You and Mason are in charge. Mason's, that younger generation. His dad is similar to mine. He's like, whatever you guys want to do. I don't know. I think my dad's a diehard Texan. So he's 6th generation. I'm 7th generation Texan. And he just wants to build a legacy here in the state, take a Texas wine national. We still invest passively in other asset classes, but I think from the operational side, we're probably just sticking to vineyards, maybe some land projects, but
I was going to say it probably keeps you pretty busy.
yes, it definitely does. Absolutely.
What is your favorite part of being in the wine industry?
There's something spiritual about a vineyard. It's hard to describe. Like to go from 300 acres of raw land, right, where and the Texas High Plains is very flat where we grow these vineyards. Like it is super flat. There's not a lot of, hills, which makes it great for, growing grapes because you're not dealing with a lot of the issues that they deal with in the hill country of Texas. But to look at like 350 acres of raw land and see every phase of the vineyard getting built and then to actually stand out there, it's incredible. And to stand in a vineyard that, is in its 5th, 6th, 7th year harvest, around that July to September time, it's magical. It's so hard to describe the feeling that you have in a vineyard. And so I think that's the aspect that I like about it the most is just the passion and conviction about the project. How wine brings people together. I mean, there's so many references to it, even in my own faith, that I think it's pretty cool to be involved in an investment like that is more than just a building to me. There's a lot of spiritual behind it.
Yeah. No, it sounds like you have fun in what you do. How important do you think is having fun and making money, those two things going together?
The more fun you have, the more money you'll make. And I hired a coach to teach me that. I thought I hired her
Mhm.
for marketing, but she taught me so much more than that. She was like, I promise you, the more fun you have, the less intense you are, the more money you're going to make, the more success you're going to find. And she helped me find this lightheartedness about business. So
Mm.
it's like a relaxed intensity. Like I'm serious about my goals, I'm serious about business, but I'm not stressed about the outcomes. Like
Mm.
everything's always working in my favor. The perfect investors are on their way to find me. They can't wait to invest money in these vineyard projects. Like our vineyards are abundant and will exceed our projections. Like I really believe that. And
Mm.
so I'm not as stressed as I used to be. I think I took that hustle culture from corporate and the stress of being an executive and I brought that into my business and I was miserable. And I was like, "Man, I
Mhm.
need marketing help to grow this thing faster." My coach was like, "No, you need to relax. Like, you need to calm down. And the more fun you have, the more success you're going to find." So she helped me bring the joy back into my business, like how I experience it. I think that's what I'm really grateful for, is to get to this place now.
That whole, like, last 5 minutes was incredible. So hiring a coach, and I think when you're positive and you're having fun, you're gonna attract those same people, right? The
Yeah.
negative people aren't gonna wanna be in your world because you're not negative. So,
Yes.
you're attracting great people to you because of what you're putting out and how you're growing too.
100%. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
very conscious about like how do people feel when they leave my presence, right? Do they leave feeling uplifted, encouraged, hopeful? And how can I be that for somebody else if I'm, bogged down in all my own crap and stress about like why are we stressing about it? It's all going to work out. Like and I've realized that like the more fun I have, the more joy I can give to others, the bigger impact I can make.
I'm curious to know, how do you start your day?
I was looking for my journal. It's actually over there on the chair. I start with affirmations, so quiet time for me. And I never journaled before. It's funny because my sales coach taught me this back in 2010. And I was like, what do you mean journal? Like write down your feelings? I'm like, that's such a waste of time because I've never been one to journal. But he taught me so much more than that. And it's more so like, who do I have to be today? Like who do I have to be as a person to follow through and take the bold action in my business to get the results? And I think a lot of people
Mm,
start with, what do I have to do today to get the results? And we need to take it back one step further. Who do I have to be? So I'm about to go into a pretty large capital raise. I just finished a $22 million raise. And, I was nervous when I said yes to committing to that because I'd never done it before. So it was starting the day with, who do I have to be? I'm the type of woman that raises $22 million with ease. And this fund is going to overfund with ease and speed. Like I'm a magnet for capital. So I write those things down, to really get my head in the right space first. So
mhm,
I follow through and take big, bold action, and I don't play small in the business and working
mm.
out, right? Move your body, all those things. But I really think it's getting your head in the game first.
Ah, I love that. I'm similar, like the starting the day without the phone, making sure that I'm intentional and focusing on me first, because if I'm not the best version, then I can't expect everyone else to show up and do the same.
Yes, that's so well
Yeah.
said.
All right, awesome. So you've got two lines of business. First, on the real estate side, if anyone is interested, wants to hear more about what you're doing there, what's the best way to reach you?
They can, any social media platform, message me. I'll respond. But on the vineyard side, it's texaslegacyvines.com.
Awesome. I really appreciate your time today and your knowledge. I'm so proud, and what you're doing, especially as a female in this world, is incredible. So keep paving the way.
Thank you, Angela. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Empower Her Money podcast. I am grateful for you. Please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, like this podcast, share it, subscribe, and let's keep teaching others how to take control and be empowered with their finances.